My name is José de Jesús Rodríguez. I'm originally from Salinas, California. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm somewhere in Boyle Heights. Boyle Heights. So in the last 4 days, I've managed to find slated lime putty, river sand, and pigments to paint a fresco at Mariscos Vientos on 3000 East Olympic. I knew about Vientos as a kid because I grew up in Salinas, California, and we would drive to Zacatecas. I had an uncle who they call 33, who still works there, who's actually been there for like maybe 33 years. They don't call him 33 because that he has a lisp. Can't say it. And every time, I think the first time I ever had octopus was at Vientos when I was like 7. Because every time we stopped, we would we would drive from Salinas to Zacatecas. We'd stop in Los Angeles and pick up some food, and he'd always hook it up. So when I was offered or proposed this like potential job, it didn't make a lot of sense logistically, but I felt like a really special thing to be a part of the restaurant's history. And there was also like this familial component that felt really, auspicious and improbable. So there's a visual history in the restaurant, which I didn't necessarily want to compete with. And like talking with Eric, the owner, and his mother, the father took a lot of aesthetic choices that were sensitive to the community. Like you just mentioned, having like the Disney characters as you walk into the restaurant so like kids can see and have like a sort of like enjoyment, visual enjoyment. And I didn't want to paint over anything. And there are these like sort of ceramic works that like adorn the restaurant. And in some ways, I think there was like a relationship to like how these things function on the painting on the wall that the fresco cutouts can also serve a similar relationship to, but also in a larger sort of like relationship to wall mural painting. I think something that's like special about the restaurant is Eric's family brought these recipes over, and the way that a lot of like immigrant families bring things over and have to sort of like recontextualize and relate to them. And in a way, I thought that was a sort of like an analogous position in which, the fresco, the mural, that's like influenced a lot of contemporary wall painting, existing on that. I don't know, there's a kind of like inverse back and forth oscillating between like these historical registers that felt like pertinent, relevant, important. I didn't want to impose a specific aesthetic or my own aesthetic onto that's kind of an impossible thing to try to want to achieve, but I wanted to, there's a looseness to some of the characters and the way things were articulated that I wanted to also sort of be aligned to when painting. But yeah, I think for me, a lot of painting was first like observed at these like sites of like eating as a kid. They become like exhibition spaces inherently. So yeah, I wanted to also sort of acknowledge that and be aligned to that rather than trying to like sort of like whitewash or paint over a position that's already existing. So I wanted to like, be sensitive to like not only the familial history, the history of the restaurant, but also this, again, like larger sort of relationship with wall painting at a restaurant, which communicates, these like really general things, but becomes like a cultural binder for people. A lot of the conversation was about sort of his father's experience and how he sort of arrived to Cuatro Vientos, like from being a street vendor, working across where the restaurant is currently positioned, and how he had a small cart, and then that turned into the truck, and the truck eventually turned to the restaurant. So he told me a lot of like his dad's sort of like hobbies, things that he enjoyed doing, where he's from San Juan de los Lagos. His nickname is Cuervo. He liked cards. So a lot of the imagery is sort of commemorating not only his like his own familial history, but also who he was as a person, and wanting to highlight those things, and also sort of also speak to like the larger, like LA seems a very important part of his own sort of migratory experience, but also life experience. So Eric really wanted to shout out the city and make these sort of connections between these different sites, between San Juan de los Lagos, between Los Angeles, and how his father is like a medium for those places. I mean, my family's from like central Mexico, not really coastal people. So for me, it was always like a really kind of distinct experience, like something sort of unique in deciding to go to a marisqueria. It wasn't something that, there always was like a tinge of luxury to going to a marisco spot. And,
Same.
I want to ask.
So Dylan, sorry. You have more questions? We can talk too, Jacob. We can have. It's good. It's okay.
So